All right, everyone, welcome back. So, today's not my day for recording. It's been a struggle, but I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins today. The Penguins are in kind of an interesting spot heading into the All-Star break. They find themselves outside of a playoff spot, but they really aren't too far back of one either. So, we're just going to get straight into the stats before I say something stupid. They have a 21-16-6 record. It's one of those days. For 48 points. They are 3 points back of the wild card 2 spot. However, they do have 2 games in hand on those other teams above them, aka the Islanders, the Red Wings, the Capitals, and the Maple Leafs as well. They have scored 131 goals, have led in 116. They are 11-8-2 at home, and they are 10-8-4 on the road. So, definitely, the Penguins are in an interesting spot. They aren't playing bad necessarily. Now, there have been points in the season where they haven't been playing well, more specifically in the month of December and November, obviously. They have been struggling at points there, but they're still in it. Realistically, they're still in it for a playoff spot. It's already this late in the season. Technically, we're around the halfway mark, but usually around now, we know what teams are going to be playoff teams and we know what teams aren't. Right now, it's still kind of just meh right now for most of the Eastern Conference. I'd say there's about 3 or 4 teams that you could confidently say, yeah, they're not making the playoffs. Everyone else is fair game, more or less. Everyone else is fair game right now, and the Penguins are one of those teams. Now, the Penguins do have a few disadvantages to them, and there's some things that aren't their fault, but there's also some things that they do need to work on. The one thing I want to bring up is the New York Islanders. The Islanders have 11 overtime loss points. 11. Now, that's not any shade being thrown at the Islanders, but that's part of the reason why the Penguins have just been out of the race, have been out of playoff spots. That's because the Islanders keep getting overtime loss points, and other teams do too. Now, the Penguins have 6. It's not like they're not a victim of this either. They are getting overtime points. But with the Islanders 11, that's 11 more points that they probably shouldn't have, to be honest with you. So, definitely that's why, with some of their weaker numbers, and the Penguins have won more games than the Islanders too, in fact. That's why they are higher than the Pittsburgh Penguins because of those overtime loss points. So, I think that is very unlucky there for Pittsburgh. It's just something you got to deal with, unfortunately, and that's why the Islanders are still technically in the playoff race, even though they just fired their coach yesterday. Now, one thing that has been a struggle in Pittsburgh, and it's been a little bit of a concern for me, and I know I will agree with this. I will agree with Penguins fans with this because I am a Philadelphia Flyers fan. Don't click off the video. I'm a Flyers fan. We both have really bad power plays right now. The Penguins, 13.57%. Absolutely brutal. Their power play last year was one of the best. Last season, it was one of the best, and now they're ranked 30th. So that's obviously something that has really prevented Pittsburgh from being a much higher team in the standings. Now, it's not everything. It's obviously not everything. There's other factors that play into it, some that I may not even be mentioning. But definitely, the power play has been something that needs to be looked at and needs to be worked on for sure. Especially with a team, too, that has such a great offensive talent. Crosby, Gensel, even Erik Karlsson, who won a Norris last year. Even though there's an asterisk to that, he did have 100 points. So he's a very good offensive defenseman. You think he'd be a good power play guy, but just it hasn't been there for Pittsburgh. It's just been an absolute struggle. And as a Flyers fan, don't click off the video again, I will say that our power play struggled too. So if you have one thing you can be happy about, at least both our power plays have struggled. Our PKs, though, have both been very good. The Penguins, 83.21% on the penalty kill, which is ranked 6th in the National Hockey League. Now, one thing that I've noticed with the majority of teams that have bad power plays, they typically have really good penalty kills. So at least Pittsburgh has that on the other teams. So definitely it's good to have a good penalty kill because definitely when you take a penalty, they score one on the power play. It's for sure not something that's ideal, and you want to have a good penalty kill. So it's good that Pittsburgh has that. Now, apart from that, the offense has been solid through the main scores. Crosby doing what he does best. I mean, he's probably the best player in Penguins history, or he's going to be very soon. 43 games played, 26 goals, 21 assists for 47 points. I believe he's nearing Mario Lemieux for the most assists in Penguins history. So as a guy who is an amazing passer, I will expect that to be passed very soon. But yeah, Crosby, nothing bad on Crosby, having a really good year. The Penguins, some of their struggles really hasn't been on Crosby whatsoever. Just a great player. Jake Gensel, there's rumors of leaving. I'll get into that in a second. 43 games played, 20 goals, 27 assists for 47 points. So tied with Crosby there for the lead for team scoring. Definitely not his problem either. He's been playing well. I understand there are rumors that he may leave, and I said in a few TikToks and a few videos that the factor of that is probably going to lie on Crosby. I think even though they're under new management and Kyle Dubas, I think a lot of things do run through Sidney Crosby, and that's not to say that it's the wrong thing. Crosby definitely should get a say because he's been around for a long time with this team. But, obviously I think that if Gensel wants to make a choice, because he'll be 30 years old by the time he signs his next contract, it makes sense that there's rumors out there that he may leave Pittsburgh. It absolutely makes sense. Now, do I think it happens? No. I really can't see a world where Jake Gensel is not a Pittsburgh Penguin. It'd be really weird to me. So, anyways, I do think that will be addressed in the coming weeks for sure, because obviously you want to get him signed. You don't. If the right offer comes along, sure, you can move him. But I think the Penguins are going to give it to Gensel and let that be his decision, because outside of Crosby, he's probably your best player. Like, just being brutally honest. And he's probably a guy that you want to keep. But Gensel, for sure, if the Penguins are going to go through, 4 to 5 years of really bad rebuilds in a few more years, maybe Gensel will decide, maybe I don't want to stay here during this. So definitely something that I think will go through his mind for sure. But regardless, we'll address that in a later video. Evgeny Malkin here is third in scoring, 43 games played, 15 goals, 22 assists for 37 points. Malkin not playing too bad. Definitely is doing solid as a Russian forward. Watched him play against the Flyers, I think last week, I believe. He's played very well against us, so definitely Malkin a great player there. Erik Karlsson's been good. Not as good as last year, of course, but still playing very well. 43 games played for Karlsson, 7 goals, 25 assists for 32 points. I think he's had a really good season. We knew this was going to fall back down to earth, and I knew that this was going to happen. I kept telling my history teacher that he's not going to score you 100 points this year, and it looks like that's what the expectation is going to be. He's probably going to get around 60, 65, maybe 70 if you're lucky, but that's probably realistically where he's going to flatten out now, realistically. But I do understand the fact that the Penguins got him. Letang, 43 games played, 3 goals, 26 assists, 29 points. The ironic thing is 6 of those assists come from one game. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, Letang playing very well in his last season, or in this latest season. Definitely, after the struggles that he got through last year, definitely good to see that he's playing well this year and playing very solid. Now, the problem that I've noticed with the Penguins when I look through their stats is secondary scoring. I know for sure, that's obviously an issue with a lot of teams. A lot of teams are always looking for good secondary scores. The Penguins kind of struggling with that. Lars Eller, a new acquisition this year, 13 points in 43 games played. Not saying that, Eller should be scoring at the amount that, Karlsson's scoring or anything like that, but definitely you want to see some more of that. Drew O'Connor, 15 points, 43 games played. One of the penalty killers in Pittsburgh. Very good penalty killer for sure. And then Rickard Rakell, 16 points in 31 games played. He's definitely kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit. It's unfortunate to see. But yeah, definitely. This is kind of a thing that I see with a lot of teams. When I do these videos, the biggest concern with a lot of the teams that I talk about is secondary scoring. So for sure, you want to see that out of Pittsburgh. And I think that come the trade deadline, that's what the Penguins are probably going to target. I think along with maybe a defenseman and maybe even a goalie, but I doubt it. I think they're going to run with Jari and Nedeljkovic, who I think have serviced them very well. Tristan Jari next up then when we look at the goalies. Jari, 30 games played, 12, 13, and 4. So a negative record there for Jari. But still, 2.50 goals against average and a .915 save percentage. So even though the record isn't all too great overall, he still has some solid goals against average and save percentage numbers. Definitely a top 10 goalie in the NHL. Still looking great there for Pittsburgh. But Nedeljkovic has looked good too. Alex Nedeljkovic was acquired this offseason as a backup, and I saw a lot of optimism here from Penguins fans, but I like Nedeljkovic. Nedeljkovic, 15 games played, 8-3-2, and a .916. I forgot to write down the goals against average. Whoops. But yeah, Nedeljkovic playing very solid. Has been a very serviceable backup there for the Penguins for sure. So definitely that's been a good thing for them. I've been putting at the end of videos a lot is trade deadline talk. I will be making a video series probably as soon as the All-Star break starts about looking at teams and what they need for the trade deadline. So expect that in the coming weeks. But obviously, as I said, Pittsburgh will want to be looking for secondary scoring. They're probably, unless if they go on a really good winning streak following the All-Star break and all of the other teams start losing, one thing that is for sure is they're likely going to probably be out of a playoff spot. Most likely. Now, depending on if like the Leafs keep struggling and the Caps struggle and other teams struggle, obviously that plays a factor and they will be in a playoff spot. But I think even if they aren't in the playoff spot, I think they still would want to buy. I think that it really is going to come down to the end of the year. Like, all it takes is one team to go on a really bad losing streak and then everyone else to start winning for you to fall out of the race. So it really does make a lot of sense there. And Pittsburgh, at this point in the year, every game counts. And that was the narrative last year too, like in December. That was the narrative, that every game counts. Like, every game means 4 points, basically. It's really important, especially against some of these metropolitan teams. Like, you don't really want to lose anymore. And the weird thing is, last night, which is Saturday night, January 20th, every Metro team lost. So definitely, if one of those teams won, like let's say the Flyers won, they would have tied the Rangers for first in the Metro. Like, and if the Penguins won, they would have probably been in a wild card spot right now. It's just so like open right now when it comes to that. And there's just so many teams that are in a playoff spot right now that Pittsburgh's one of those teams that's in the mix. But they've lost a lot of games in regulation too, not getting the overtime points that have kind of, or earlier in the season they have, that have kind of just put them, a little bit behind. But they're still in it. They're absolutely still in it. And again, all it takes is for them to go on a big winning streak and for other teams to go on a big losing streak, and bam, you're back in it. So definitely, it's really going to come down to the end of the season. But yeah, regardless, Pittsburgh, definitely a team that's in a strange spot, but not really that far out of it. So we'll see where they are following the end of the trade deadline. But anyways, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. It does subscribe on down below. I greatly appreciate it. I don't make that many Penguins videos often. So definitely, if you're a Penguins fan, make sure to subscribe down below if you're new. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.